satanic ritual abuse. We have found that that Satan, his locality is not Pergamum, since post-World War II, his locality is now in Jerusalem. And that's a de facto necessity on his part, because we know from Isaiah 2:1-4 that when Jesus Christ returns at the Mount of Olives, which is just an eye shot from the Temple Mount, once he returns at Mount of Olives, he will then move his locality to the Temple Mount and establish his 1,000-year reign. His throne, his government, will be from Mount Zion for 1,000 years. And so in order to preempt that, Satan has now moved his throne to Jerusalem as of post-World War II, which was most likely located in Germany prior to the birth of Israel. So as these women are taken there to rituals, then this is where his throne is. And then, of course, when people who are there who have these throne positions in them, there's a maximum release of power through the use of these women as cult prostitutes. So you notice he says, he overcomes, I will grant him to sit with me in my throne. So what Satan has done, he's created a counterfeit of this phenomenon by bringing those that are SRIDID, those who are grand dame, those who are created to be mothers and wives of these Nephilim entities in this generation. They represent a throne position, and they also have positions on the Nephilim council that sit with Satan in his throne. Okay? Now we notice a rather phenomenal statement in Revelation 13, verses 1 and 2, where we have a reference to the coming of the Antichrist. From John's time, we see the very imagery that is used there goes back to Daniel 7, only the order is reversed. In Daniel 7, it begins with Babylon the lion and Media Persia the bear, and then the third representation is the leopard in Daniel 7, which is a reference to Alexander the Great. Here is the reverse. The beast is referred to, which is the Antichrist, in verse 2, is like a leopard. That's mentioned first. Now it's interesting, the leopard not only refers back to Alexander, but if you study the history of Nimrod, he is depicted as wearing leopard skins. And so this refers ultimately, we'd say the base would be Nimrod in terms of this identity and how he is structured in terms of an emerging world figure that will come out of the abyss. We also see incorporated him is Alexander, which means emancipator of the people. And by the way, Alexander is the title of the Antichrist that we have in numerous testimonies is Nimrod, Apollyon, the destroyer, Alexander. So Nimrod, he's the first historical Antichrist. Apollyon, he's the destroyer. Alexander, his name means emancipator of the people. And in Luciferian doctrine, the view is that when Satan, the serpent, came into the garden as Lucifer, he came to emancipate the people from the limitation, from the suppression of the demiurge Yahweh, the evil god of Christians and Jews. He came to emancipate them by coming to enlighten them, and so he is the light bearer to come to enlighten, to emancipate, and therefore that fits the very title and name and meaning of the word Alexander, emancipator of the people. That's the etymology of the term. So in this passage we see the beast which I saw was like a leopard, a Nimrod hyphen Alexander, and his feet were like those of a bear. It takes us back to the Median Persian Empire. So it incorporates these previous dynasties that were satanic and anti-Semitic. And his mouth was like the mouth of a lion, referring back to Babylon. That is the Babylon under the time of Daniel. And the dragon, notice, the dragon gave him, the beast, his power and his throne and great authority. So Satan is able to transfer his throne to this hybrid entity called the Antichrist. Now, how do we know he's hybrid? Revelation 19:20 says that when Jesus returns, both the beast and the false prophet are thrown alive into the lake of fire, which means they do not stand before God at the great white throne judgment like all the rest of humanity stands before God in Revelation 21:11 and following. So we know that they represent a species that are already judged. And so the significance of this is that here we have an entity that was conceived as the seed of the serpent, as the Antichrist. He comes on the scene in the world's history, and Satan is able to, what does the verb say? The dragon gave him his power and his throne. So Satan's throne is transferable, and so we'll be talking about that tonight. We also see in Revelation 16:10 that when the fifth angel poured out his bowl upon the throne of the beast, and his kingdom became darkened, and they gnawed their tongues because of pain. Notice, a bowl was poured out upon the throne of the beast, which embodies Satan's throne, the throne of the dragon. So that's probably enough preliminary that should be a catalyst to begin our discussion about preconception rituals, the role and function of the UN in the context of many of these rituals as they're being carried out on a global agenda as it relates to the Antichrist, New World Order, and Satan's throne. So my first question that I want to throw out is, what is the significance of understanding preconception rituals as it relates to one's conception? So, by way of just a preliminary statement, in working with these women, we have realized that right at conception, that's when the first assault comes. There are rituals that occur on a massive level, and when most of these people, except Jennifer Diane, and there's other ways in which that has been incorporated, but there's a conception ritual that occurs on Mount Hermon, most likely in the Nazi Bell, where there is not only high-level spiritual forces being released through synchronized rituals worldwide, based upon the portal that was opened by the destruction of 6 million Jews in Germany, but we have technology of the bell, where you have the distortion of time. There's a dimensional separation that occurs right at conception, so that the person's inbreathed neshamah that occurs right at conception, as Genesis 2:7 compared to Proverbs 20 verse 27, as that breath of life is breathed in, then there is a satanic assault, and then that the person's true identity and that which connects them with God, Job 32:8, 33:4, we see the role and function of neshamah is understanding, and the ability, it has attributes of knowing, and possesses that original life of God, which, by the way, dies spiritually at the point of conception. And so right there at conception, we have a ritual, and so Satan, there's like a spiritual surgery, if you will, a kind of an extraction, a surgical extraction, a siphoning off of the person's essence and identity. He steals as much as he can, and now that is taken back into preconception domain, and it reaches back to the 5 I wills of Satan, and then that essence is aligned with all the anti-God activities and rituals of human history, including, of course, the murder of Cain and Nimrod. Their essence is aligned with that, and in this preconception domain is Satan's plan, his template, the inherent structure that is the basis of all the programming that will govern that person's life under the satanic agenda. So it begins right at conception. So as we have been working with this, it's been very significant to release the conception identity, and of course to do that we have to identify the oldest adult extension off the conception identity, to have the authority to go in and reclaim the conception identity that has been captured by Satan and brought into alignment with him through symbiosis and a deep spiritual connection with who he is as the God of this age. So I will just pass this over to you. Susanna, why don't you just share what the significance, as far as what your understanding is now, what preconceptuals represent to you in terms of your journey and coming out of this.
Okay. Hi, Georgianne.
Hi.
Hold the phone up.
Right here? Okay. I think in my role has been designated more as the wife of the Lamb.
Hold it up to
Oh, okay. And so what I see in preconception was that whole, I know it seems to be echoing. Is everything okay?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, just turn it. Yeah, we're going to turn off the speakerphone. Hopefully that'll work. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I hope it's
Sorry
clear now.
for the interruption. We just had to adjust our phones. Go ahead, Susanna.
So, in a sense, I was to represent the church, and the bride. And so it's as if from preconception, that was the plan for me, and that plan is imprinted now that I see and anchored in those preconception rituals, so that even before you're born, that satanic plan is imprinted upon you. And so not only as a representation of the bride of the Lamb, but as a representation of the church, I represented the Laodicean church. I had spirits, all these religious spirits placed upon me. And then at birth, there are rituals to keep reinforcing this. And Doug was talking about the essence of your being identified with, like, the death of Nimrod and so forth. Well, the death of Nimrod, he was cut into 13 pieces. This is a ritual that has been done over and over in my life with my sisters at certain key points, at my very birth, at new birth, at the conception of Nimrod, my first Nephilim son, and then again with Dan, as I was prepared and groomed to be a wife to Dan too. And so as a representation, I was thinking about this, that this is what happened to Nimrod. And it's just like the whole plan of SRADID is to sever the body of Christ, and just to, really, to inflict upon the body of Christ.
Yes.
The identification in his death is inflicted now through this whole plan, just to break up the body of Christ, to shatter us. And it's
because this happened to you as Christian.
Right. This happened to me as a Christian. And so this was planned at preconception, but not only that, but anchored at a future point where I felt like I was being where I felt like I was standing at the judgment seat of God and taking on the whole judgment for the Laodicean church. And when I got to these two anchor points, anchored at preconception, and not only that, but at preconception, the base of power for this was brought forward from history, even from the 12th century. Everything is building and being brought forward into this final age.
Yeah, in other words, these rituals that have occurred throughout history, the reason why the 12th century is so significant, I could have a separate show on how my bloodline was linked with the Druids in my bloodline and my family, how I had to break some generational connections in the 12th century. But the 12th century is so significant is because the Kabbalah and that secret occult esoteric form of Judaism was underground. It was all hidden. It began to emerge in the 12th century, from which we get Rosicrucianism, modern day New Age. It comes out of this form of false spirituality. And in the 12th century, we also have the beginning of all these crusades. And there are over 12,000 Jews that were killed in Germany during one of the first or second crusades. And here's what the Jewish historians say, Georgianne and all you listeners. I think you'll find this interesting. The Jewish historians say that during period of the 12th century in the Crusades, it's referred to as the first Holocaust.
Oh my goodness.
So it's like a portal was opened there, and perhaps if Satan would have had his way, he would have liked to brought in Antichrist then. It wasn't time, but all of these people have had some kind of connection and anchoring in the 12th century, which then further goes back to history, specifically the time of Nimrod, and then to be brought into alignment symbiotically with the 5 I wills of Satan.